You're watching Mac and Jack on National Streaming Sports.
Without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know Patel's got
this win. I don't know, Jack. It's a big decision.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem with saying space.
Pittsburgh at Buffalo.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought I was right. So anyway,
yeah, Mac, you're really interested in these playoffs.
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
It's Friday, Jack. We made it through another week. Another week of sports.
That's what some of the NFL players are saying who didn't get cut, who are, on the fringes and not making the team. Oh, we made it through another week.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And, of course, on the Big Football Show, we'll be covering all that. We got a lot of stuff for the Big Football Show Sunday. Whole lot of information for you. Of course, we got all the games and all that good stuff. And tomorrow, Sports Memories, of course, we'll be doing it. We'll have another great show for you on Sports Memories. But today, Jack, I want to talk about something. I watch all the shows on our Roku channel because we have a lot of great shows. Coffee and Sports is one of them. And they brought up about the ratings in the Olympics for the women's basketball team. So I rush over, I look at the ratings, and all the Olympics itself were over 30.6 million viewers and 82% in viewership since last Olympics. So, I mean, NBC really did a good job, and they really got paid off with all the viewers. And every team event, men's basketball, women's soccer, swimming events, all the track and field events, all were up. The only team event that went down was the USA women's basketball team, Jack. It has its lowest ratings for the last three Olympics, going all the way back to Beijing. It was only at where it had 7.8 million in Beijing. Tokyo was 7.9. Rio was 8.1 million. London was 10.2 million. And Jack, you talked about it a lot. I didn't think it was a big deal. I thought, you got your best team and everything. But you brought up Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, maybe just being on the team. And maybe the WNBA, since we got football coming, right? We've got college football coming. We've got, the NBA will be picking up. MLB playoffs will be coming in. They might have missed a huge opportunity, Jack.
They did miss a huge opportunity, and I'm not second guessing. It would have been a game changer had they had on Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, especially Caitlin Clark. The ratings would have been much, 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 much higher. A lot more people would have viewed in, and it would have made a difference going forward as far as the WNBA went, women's basketball. But there was pettiness. Let's be honest about it. From the moment Caitlin Clark came into the league, there was such pettiness towards her by so many of the other established players in the WNBA. Pure jealousy. There's no other way to explain it. They're kind of moving on from that only because Caitlin Clark has established herself as a really good player who's only going to get better. So they're kind of like backing off. They could see, oh, wow, she could really play well. And she might be one of the best players in the league in the not too distant future. What an opportunity he had for the WNBA going forward during the Olympics. That's been lost. that's been lost. They would have gotten a whole new audience, but because of the pettiness, and they had the attitude, well, you have to earn your way on the team, this. Well, she did earn her way on the team. She was a great college player. No different from Christian Laettner being a rookie, being put, on the dream team. Put her on, and then if the coach felt she should only have limited minutes, whatever, you don't tell the coach how to coach the team, Dawn Staley, but to leave off altogether meant before the games even began, there was a lack of interest, in the women's Olympic basketball team, and people just didn't tune in.
Jack, and just to have them on, say they don't even play. Say maybe they get in for a couple minutes, right? Diane Taurasi didn't play as much. She was a little injured, a little older. She didn't play as much. Caitlin Clark could have filled in there. Angel Reese might have been able to go in for a few minutes. And as I'm thinking, what is the big deal? And it was a big deal. I was wrong. I mean, you got the hard, the crowd that just watches the WNBA. You got your fans. But they had a shot, as you say, to bring in maybe some fans that, were watching the WNBA because of Caitlin Clark, maybe the novice fans, if you will. And now they come back, they're playing again, but soon all these other sports are going to be starting or coming into, the playoffs, like I said, in MLB, and we're not going to be talking about the WNBA anymore.
Yeah, Matt, let's make believe you and I were in Paris. And there are 5 events going on at the same time. And you and I could walk into any event, and we're just walking by the women's basketball venue. And if we hear Caitlin Clark's playing, chances are we'll say, yeah, let's go in and catch this game. If we hear she's not playing, we're going to look elsewhere. We're going to look for better options. And, it's just what it is. And the ironic part about it is, and I'll give Dawn Staley, their head coach, credit. She said later on, well, if I knew Caitlin Clark was going to improve that much, she may have been on the team.
Yeah.
All of a sudden she had, I give a degree of credit for that. But we knew the type of attraction that she was, and no one would tell the coach how much to play her. No one would tell the coach at all. But there was so much pettiness with the WNBA women from the beginning of the year. It's kind of stopped now, as I said, because Caitlin Clark showed she's a really good player. So basically shut the pettiness down.
Yes. Welcome Keith Angle from TGI Sports Talk.
Good morning, guys.
Happy birthday, Keith.
Thank you, Jack.
Yesterday it was, though.
Well,
it was on a Patriot Day, a Patriot game day. I mean,
yeah,
yes.
It was an end I'm familiar with as well.
So, Keith, of course, we have Keith Angle in to talk about the Patriots and the college football scene. And Keith, let's start there. The Patriots they lose 14-13, I think the score was. Drake May played a little bit longer. Instead of going 3 for 9 or 3 for whatever, he ended up going, 6 for 11 touchdown drive. He runs one in. I mean, he looked better as he's supposed to every game. Not playing against starters, of course, but is there, Keith? I want to get your comments on the game, but I also want to answer this. Is there a chance, game 1? Because Brissett hasn't played that much. I imagine they'll let him play game 3 more. Is there a chance that Drake May starts the season?
No, 0 chance Drake May starts the season. Jacoby Brissett's going to start the season. And again, Joe Milton, by the way, he struggled. He looked good. There was a lot of drops and whatnot, and he's still been the best quarterback in camp overall. But again, Brissett's going to start. He will play more, I think, next week. Played 2 series, I think, last night. Again, nobody looked great. The offense didn't look great. The offense is going to be a problem, just like it was last year and the year before. Actually, much compared to where we were last year, where we look right now. 2 years ago, looks like they were the Chiefs, for crying out loud. But the defense has played well. Defense played really well again last night. The game-winning touchdown was scored on a bunch of guys who won't be around most likely after next week's game. Or maybe when do they cut down? It's after next week's game, I think, right? all the way down to 53 from 90. So they don't have like multiple cut downs either. Now it's like, 40 guys are out the door in one day. Overall, they're competitive. This is what I saw last year. As bad as they were last year, they were competitive most weeks. This is a learning experience. Gerard Merrill's is learning as well. Why he's putting Milton, I know it's a preseason game, but why put Zappe in for the last drive when they have a chance to go down the field? Just leave Milton there, put Drake May back out there to get some 2-minute experience, right?
Yeah.
I didn't understand that.
Maybe he wants a reason to have Zappe on the regular roster, not to practice squad, because if Zappe leads him to a touchdown, he could think to himself, okay, Zappe's going to be my third string quarterback. Milton can still learn 1 year on the practice squad.
Possibly.
But Zappe didn't get it done.
Look,
So,
the offensive line is a sieve. It's still terrible. There's no left tackle. There's no right tackle. Probably this is not a good situation, and they lose the game. Basically, they were driving and had a chance for Ryland to miss a game-winning field goal, which would have been getting him ready for the season if he could miss one. But they had a horrible snap at the end of the game. I mean, that's just inexcusable.
I think Robert Kraft and the Patriot coaching staff, they have a little bit of a novelty because they need only 1 or 2 things to happen this year. Record-wise, if it's better than anticipated, that would be great, but it probably won't be. But if Drake May comes along nicely and gives the Patriot fan base hope for the future, serious hope for the future, then the year won't be deemed a failure. I think the Patriot fans will be patient with a down year in the standings, 1-loss record. If Drake May develops, if Drake May is flat this season and doesn't give them a spark, any real hope, then I think there's going to be real unrest, and they're going to need someone to blame. And I think Robert Kraft, the first time, is going to become the target.
Well, he's starting to become. If you listen to I watched some of the Boston media last night, and they obviously don't think they can win this year because they're sitting on about $30 million of salary cap money that they could use, and they just won't spend it. You saw it with Judon before they traded him. We talked about it Wednesday night, and he got traded just not too long after that, Mac.
Right.
They won't spend the money. And he said, I mean, it's funny. Matthew Judon's comments were hilarious, I thought, after his trade when he said, I don't know why they won't spend the money. It's not like it's going to cost them anything. I'm like, it is their money to spend. If they don't spend it, it does go in their pocket. He says, it's not like it goes in their pocket. Well, yes, it does. If they don't spend it, it's in their pocket. So I think personally, I think they don't think they can contend. They know they can't contend right now. As Jack said, they're going to be happy with some progress, and maybe next year, they're going to spend the money, maybe.
So Keith, I think the trade wasn't a bad one. I mean, the Falcons made out getting a pass rusher that they needed, right? They were talking about in the draft, they didn't pick up a pass rusher. Well, now that silences that, but you guys still got a 3rd round draft choice out of it. And I think a 4th too, if something happens, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he's got to play a certain amount of games, or I don't remember what the stipulation was, something about that, because he's had some injury issues the last couple of years. He missed the end of the season 2 years ago, and he missed almost the whole season last year. I played 3 games. And if he's healthy, this is a great move for the Falcons. If it's just a 3rd round draft pick, even if it's a 3rd and a 4th. I said Wednesday night, the best they could have done was a 2 if somebody was crazy, right? But and I think he might have been worth at least that if he'd been healthier.
Awesome.
I'm glad you lectured Mac on that, because we talked about Ayuk on the 49ers, and Mac was saying, maybe the Niners could get a 1st round draft pick. No, teams don't give up number 1. They rarely give up number 2s unless they get a little desperate, like Keith is saying. Normally it would be about a 3rd round draft choice. This is an all-pro caliber, lineman.
When Pittsburgh gives San Fran, when they give him a 1st round for that, you'll eat your words, Jack.
Well,
the Steelers will not give a 1st round draft pick.
We shall see.
No way.
We shall see.
Maybe a 3rd rounder, but that would be it.
The 49ers didn't even give up a number 1 to get McCaffrey, for crying out loud. So
exactly.
That is true. Yeah. McCaffrey was hurt. I mean, McCaffrey was hurt every year with the Panthers.
He's a better player than Ayuk. I can tell you that now.
Well, they played different positions, number one and number two. Yeah, he is. So anyway,
he's a more valuable player, whatever position he plays. He's a more valuable player than Ayuk.
So let's look at a little. Well, let's cover this first. Judge, fastest player in history to 300 home runs in the least amount of games. We got to put that in there because a lot of people will say, well, maybe he is, maybe he ain't. Anyway, Keith, what is your thoughts about what Judge, and Jack, you too, can Judge approach 600 home runs in his career? I mean, say he does 40 home runs for the next 4 years, 5 years, whatever. Yeah. And then, of course, he's going to fade off. I don't think 700 is in his wheelhouse. Can he catch A-Rod?
No way. Again, he'd have to average, just to get to 600, he's got to average probably 50 the next 6 years. Remember, he's the fastest guy in the number of games, right. But he's not young. A lot of guys got there a lot younger than him. He was kind of a late bloomer. I'm not sure. I was just going to check right now. I think he's 31, if I'm not mistaken. See if I can find it for you real quick. But
I think he's 32, but
maybe he's 31 or 32. I can tell you real quick.
Yeah, but the point is, let's not 32. Get ahead of ourselves. We're talking about a few hundred homers, like we just snap our finger. It's such a hard thing to do, and you don't know at what point age is going to affect Judge. Right now, he's in his prime. He's at his peak. He's perfect. And eventually, Judge is going to slip a bit. And what's slipping to an Aaron Judge? He's going to have a year where he hits 35 homers and knocks in 100 runs. And we're going to talk about the way he's declining. I mean, look at Giancarlo Stanton, what he was at his prime. Okay, I know he's had injuries.
Wait a minute, that's your guy.
He's not the same player he was earlier. He's still good. He could still hit, over 30 homers a year. But let's not get ahead of ourselves with Judge. You never know what he's going to do. The thing about Judge, you can't make him a DH because he's too good defensively.
Yeah.
So how do you leave him on the bench? It's easy to make a guy like a Stanton or another player a DH, but a Judge has value in the field.
Well, kind of to your point, Jack, I mean, he's going to be 33 when the season starts next year, or close to when the season starts anyway. He's got to average basically 60 home runs for the next 5 years through when he's 39 just to get to 600. And not just the age, but he's got an injury history, which probably won't get better as he gets older either. So maybe he can approach 600 depending on how long he plays, but I don't think he'll get close to it.
He has 7 years left on his Yankee contract after this year.
Probably
and let's say he averaged 40 homers a year, which is not a gimme because he might get injured, and he'll probably be declining a bit at the end of the contract. That's 240 more homers after this season. So you're talking in terms of him winding up with about 555, 560 when all is said and done, which is great, but I can't see him making a run into the 700s unless he could keep this form for all 7 years of his contract and stay healthy. That would be historical. Then you'd have to compare him to Babe Ruth if he could do this the next 7 years.
You would. If he again, when I was saying he would have to go on a 60 home run pace for 5 seasons to get to 600. I don't see that happening, by the way. I think what you're talking about, Jack, is more realistic.
Yeah.
Mid 500s, maybe it's probably realistic.
All right. So
which, by the way, is a pretty good career. Right?
Well, even anything over 500 is pretty good. So let's talk a little bit about college football. Ohio State gets a new quarterback. They're going to be, I guess, be running more of a spread offense this year. Let me get you some of the numbers here. Let's see. Howard is the Will Howard is the quarterback's name. He led the Wildcats to the first Big 12 championship, upset victory over TCU, 2022, 28 starts, 59%, 5,786 yards, 48 TDs, 25 interceptions. Is this what Ohio State has been waiting for, a quarterback that can really let the ball go, and maybe this year is Ohio State's year?
I think, well, two things. Howard is a very good quarterback and will give Ohio State a better opportunity to win the national championship if they weren't there. It's not like they haven't had any great quarterbacks. Justin Fields only graduated 3 years ago, so they've had some great quarterbacks. Haskins before that. Their quarterback play was up and down last year for sure, and even the year before. So listen, and there's a lot of pressure. Ryan Day's got as much pressure on him as any coach in the country. Because they've gone on a spending spree, basically. It's not just him, but they brought in the All-American quarterback whose name's escaping me from Alabama. They've loaded this team up to win the Big Ten, number one, and to make a run at the national championship game. If he doesn't get to the national championship game, and by the way, if he doesn't beat Michigan, which he should this year, Ryan Day's going to be feeling the hot seat. You know,
well, Keith, wait, you said Ohio State's had some great quarterbacks. I beg to differ, because if you look at how it's translated into the NFL when they took the next step, apparently they weren't great quarterbacks. Maybe they're quarterbacks who played on great teams, so they were able to perform based on what was around them.
Well, that's partly true, but great college quarterbacks in no way, shape, or form do I think great college quarterbacks necessarily going to be great NFL quarterbacks. They're two totally different things. Tim Tebow's one of the best college players ever to play the game, and he's not certainly been a great NFL player. And I always have to point out the distinction, because it's elite people like to make. They go, well, Ohio State's never had any good quarterbacks because none of them ever play good in the NFL. That's, to me, they're two different topics. Yeah. You know, you can't. There's a lot of great quarterbacks. Steve Spurrier won a Heisman Trophy. He was a terrible NFL quarterback, right? So you go back forever, and guys don't make it. And then guys who were not good in college or didn't get a chance become stars in the NFL.
Right. So what I want you to do for us is look into your college crystal ball for a second, Keith. If you were to rank before the season starts, maybe the top 5 quarterbacks in the major colleges, who would your top 5 be?
Again, there's some health qualifiers here, right? Top 5. Carson Beck from Georgia is going to be in the top 5. I think Cam Rising at Utah will be in the top 5, assuming he's healthy. Missed the entire year last year. Decided to come back for one more year. I think he'll be a top 5 quarterback if he's healthy. Riley Leonard at Notre Dame, transferred from Duke, another big health concern, but this guy's a great weapon if he's healthy. Ewers, most likely at Texas, or even Arch Manning if he should step in there at some point. One of those guys would definitely fit that bill. And then for a 5th guy, who would I throw in there? I might even put Will Howard in there, because in that Ohio State offense, I think Will Howard quite possibly could be a top 5 quarterback this year.
Interesting.
Keith, is there any one college quarterback who's considered a generational talent for next year's draft? I don't mean just a consensus number one. Someone like, even though he hasn't panned out to be a great quarterback yet, someone like a Trevor Lawrence type who everyone is salivating over.
No, you'll hear a lot about Cam Ewers. Might be the number 1 guy right now coming out of the draft, going into the draft.
He's not a generational talent.
I don't think there's anybody. You'll hear guys get pumped up like Ewers, like Cam Rising, who's got all the tools. But you know, that one guy like Trevor Lawrence, I don't think there's one guy that's coming out this year. And I think teams knew that this year too, and that's why you saw some of the things that happened with Michael Penix and whatever else this year. Good morning to Danny. Glad to have you in this morning. Miller at Ole Miss is a good quarterback. Danny says that's another good pick. Yeah, not at Mississippi. That's Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart will be one of the top quarterbacks in the country too. There's a bunch of guys. Cam Ward transferred to Miami. He should have a really good year. But guys go to Miami and disappear.
And of course, the Oregon quarterback that transferred over there too might have a good year.
Dylan Gabriel has been very solid throughout his career, both at UCF and then he stepped it up when he got to Oklahoma. So yeah, Dylan Gabriel's another guy. There's just a bunch of, but again, all those guys, right? You could say there's 10 guys that you could put into the top 5 in any kind of order, but I don't see a guy, to Jack's point, that's that generational guy coming out unless somebody just explodes onto the scene this year. I mean, Carson Beck is, to me, because of wins and the program that he's in, might be the best quarterback in the best quarterback situation in the country, but I don't see him translating on the next level at all.
There were a lot of talk about Deion's son at Colorado. Do you see him being a top quarterback, or is that more, the promotion of his son more than what he does on the field?
I might have to eat these words later, but I think he's a marketing creation, really. I mean, to be fair to the kid, he's put up some really good numbers with a really, really bad offensive line at Colorado. Somebody's going to take a chance on him. He'll probably be a first-round draft pick because somebody's going to see the talent and they're going to take a shot at him. And I might have to eat my words, but I feel like he's more of a marketing creation than actually a great quarterback in the future.
Yes.
You mentioned Texas before. Is it possible that this storyline could develop if Texas falls out of contention for the playoff picture for the national championship and US is still playing well? Is it possible they replace him towards the end of the year with Arch Manning? Because Manning is their future, and they're going to want him to get him ready for next year.
Yeah, anything's possible in that type of situation. If they're out of the hunt in the SEC for some reason, which they shouldn't be, man, they got a really, really good team. Although they're having running backs fall by the wayside right and left here before the season starts. But Arch played really great. He outplayed yours in the spring practices in the spring game. Yours is a really good quarterback, had some health issues, so there's a lot of reasons we might see Arch Manning. You're going to see him more than you saw him last year, I think.
Why did you stay in college an extra year? If he entered the NFL draft, wouldn't he probably have been taken maybe late in the first round?
I'm not sure that he would have because of I think there's health concerns, and I think he needs to prove that he can stay healthy throughout a season. And I'm guessing that he was probably told he was going to be late first round, early second round at best, and that's why he stayed.
Keith, is this one of your followers, Steve Roth?
Steve, I don't think I know Steve's name. Danny,
he wanted to join the podcast, and it's like, well, Steve, I gotta know what you know.
Yeah.
I'm not just gonna send you a link, Steve. I mean, maybe you're very knowledgeable. I don't know, but if you look up the page, maybe we'll get together. I don't know. Leave your email or something. I'll email you and see how much knowledge you have. That I'm not just gonna let anybody.
And if Steve, you're one of my followers, and I've forgotten, I apologize, but I didn't recognize the name off the top of my head. No. Danny is. I'll point out Danny's up at 5:28 in the morning watching this out there in California.
I see in California. That's great. So Sunday, I'm gonna and Ralph, good morning. Sunday, I'm going to put you in a position. I've been watching this interesting Netflix docu-series called Swamp Kings. I don't know if you watched it or not, Keith. It's about Urban Meyer.
I have seen it. Yeah.
All right. Good. So Sunday, we'll have a real good conversation about that Netflix series, the rival of Urban Meyer at Florida, coming from Utah. So I've been just started watching it now. I'm going to finish it up for Sunday so that I know what the hell I'm talking about when I ask you questions. So I think that'll be a great piece for Sunday. Urban Meyer, we know, just like you mentioned, Steve Spurrier, great in college, coach, came up into the pros, and for some reason they didn't think they had to work as hard as they did in college. I don't know what happened there. But it'll be interesting. We'll do that on the Sunday Big Football Show. So very interesting stuff. So let's get to the MLB playoff pictures. Let me know when you got to cut out, Keith. I'll let you go. And
another 10 minutes or so. Probably,
okay, cool. So let's look at the MLB playoff picture right now. Cleveland would be one of the division winners. The Yankees and Baltimore won last night. They're tied now. Right now, I have the Yankees in first. They would be a division winner. And then you got Houston right now as a division winner. And folks, we're at 22 games. We're only 40 games away from the playoffs. We're in the fourth quarter here, of the MLB season. So that's what I have for the top three teams. Baltimore, who again won. I had them as a wild card. Minnesota and Kansas City. So the Central is repping big time right now as far as the wild card race goes. And Boston's close. Seattle is not as close or close. So those two teams are still alive. What do you guys think in wild card? Does the Central have both their teams in? I mean, just your thoughts looking forward.
I think Kansas City falters as we hit this last stretch. I think the Twins will be in. The Twins have played really good baseball since they got off to a horrible start, and people want to Rocco Baldelli fired in the first month of the season. They played really well. I think the Mariners. How many more? Well, so we got one wild card we know is going to either be the Yankees or Baltimore, right?
Right,
so,
that's for sure. Minnesota and KC, they got a few game lead over the Boston Red Sox in Seattle.
I think Seattle will grab that last wild card in my mind. I think it'll be Minnesota and Houston Minnesota and Seattle get those other two wild cards. Seattle's got too much talent. Their pitching is really good. I know they've lost 3 in a row again, but I talked forever early in the season when the Astros were started off so bad that the Mariners or the Rangers or both better put their foot on the throat of the Astros and don't let them up. And neither one of them took advantage of how bad the Astros started. And now I think the Astros will win that division for fun, and then they'll be tough in the playoffs. But to your question, I think it'll be if we assume the Yankees, I'm going to call Yankees or Orioles. I'll assume the Twins and the Mariners will be my wild card picks. I think the Royals.
I'm not sure about Keith about the Mariners overtaking Kansas City. You're mentioning Seattle's talent, but Seth Lugo, who's the Royal pitcher, there's a good chance he's going to win the Cy Young Award. It's hard to believe he was a middle inning reliever for the Mets, early in his career. And then they have maybe the best young player in baseball in Bobby Witt. And then, a future Hall of Famer, Salvador Perez. I mean, there's talent there. I mean, we didn't expect the Royals to be this good, but I can't say the signs are going to show they're going to falter. Is one team going to sneak up on them that we haven't mentioned? Is it going to be the Red Sox, who've been consistent, good throughout the year? They're going to surge forward, surge backward. What about Tampa Bay, who's made the playoffs the last few years? Will they suddenly surge, these last 40 games?
The team, the Red Sox don't they'd have to surge to get there because they're not there now, but they played better baseball than we thought they'd play, and they've been fairly consistent. So they're close. If there's a team to watch from way outside, and they're 10 games under 500 right now, so there's no reason to think it'll happen. But if the Rangers should get healthy and somehow Scherzer and DeGrom can pitch and Evans comes back and he plays like they expected him to as a rookie, and the rest of the team, everybody's played badly there pretty much in this post championship season. That's a team maybe to watch out for. I mean, as bad as they played, they're still only eight games out of the wild card, maybe. Long ways to go with 40 to go. Don't get me wrong, but
8 games is a lot. It's hard when a few other teams have to leap over. That's
right. You get a lot of teams to jump
and those
over.
teams got to lose to, for you to make the move too. So that's very difficult. And the National League.
I'm only saying if one team could come from way back, that'd be the only team I see could do.
Good morning, David. So the National League, we got the Dodgers and the Phillies pretty much almost even with their records. Phillies, I think, will win the division. The Dodgers are still in a little bit of trouble here with San Diego and, with Arizona playing so well. So right now you have LA, the Dodgers, Philadelphia, Milwaukee. I think the Dodgers, that Philly and Milwaukee get it. The interesting part, we have Arizona and San Diego that are on a tear right now. They're only a couple games behind the Dodgers. They're doing unbelievable right now. They would be the wild card teams. You have Atlanta at 64 and 56 would be the third, and the two teams close, of course, are the Mets and the Giants, who are under 500 right now. First of all, do you think one of those teams, San Diego or the Diamondbacks, catch the Dodgers for the division, guys?
I think it's possible. I think it'll be the Diamondbacks if one of them catches them. I just don't think the Padres have enough pitching. It keeps getting hurt all the time. The Dodgers have shown they got some weaknesses. They moved Betts off shortstop back into the outfield. Muncy's been out for forever and don't know when he's coming back. Pitchers in and out of the rotation, similar to last year. The Padres are much more consistent than they were at any time last year, and the Diamondbacks now playing much better baseball after a bad start themselves. I think the Diamondbacks could catch either one of these teams could. I think the best bet would be the Diamondbacks myself, as far as that goes. And they both they're both of them are solid in the wild card right now. I think a 4.5 game lead. But there's teams within striking distance that haven't played well. You mentioned the Giants, who I liked a lot as a sleeper in the preseason. In all fairness, I also like the Tigers, so I guess I did do well there. And the Reds are starting to show some life as well after playing pretty bad all year. They're only 4 games out of the wild card spot. So Cardinals close. Pittsburgh's only 5.5 out, which I don't think they're going to have any shot. But
no, Pittsburgh has been playing dreadful baseball. But one team is going to surge out of nowhere. It could be the St. Louis Cardinals. It could be the Giants.
Yeah.
But who's going to fall back to the pack and leave a wild card position open? More likely than not, it'll be the San Diego Padres. I think Arizona, maybe they'll level out, but I can't see them, going on any substantial type of losing streak. It's the same with the Atlanta Braves. They had their bad spell. They're a little too good not to make the playoffs.
Listen, the Braves are like 20 games over 500. They're 7 games over 500 right now. This team is not trending in the right direction at all. I think they're more likely myself.
There's a little too much talent, even with the injuries. And then the Mets, they had their good spell. It's hurting the Mets, the Diamondbacks and Padres all of a sudden playing great baseball. That wasn't anticipated. And the Mets kind of leveled out, and they were average for a while the Diamondbacks and Padres went on a tear. And that kind of left the Mets a bit on the outside.
Another big problem. Another big problem with the Mets is you got to beat the Oakland A's.
Well, and the Marlins, they lose to the Marlins, they lose to the A's. You can't lose to these teams.
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
Real
quick. I know you'll talk about this on your MLB show, probably, Keith. And I know you only got a couple minutes, so maybe I should have rushed it a little bit. Okay. The commissioner's office is looking to bring starting pitching up to a minimum of 6 innings. Now, there's a couple exceptions of this. You can't give up 4 earned runs, 100 pitch limit, all this stuff that's exceptions. They're going to start in the minor leagues. Of course, pitchers are going to have to start worrying about control a little bit, not throwing 100-mile-an-hour fastballs. They're going to have to maybe use more curves and breaking pitches than they did. Maybe it saves a couple's arms. I don't know. But this is something that's being talked about right now.
This is the wrong approach to fix a problem that I've talked about forever. I've said pitchers don't pitch enough. They don't go deep enough in the games. You pay them the most money. They don't pitch the most important part of games. And I think Major League Baseball is trying to save pitchers' arms this way because right now it's go out and throw as hard as you can for as long as you can, and you're seeing a lot of pitchers go down. This isn't the right way to approach it. You can't put more rules into play that say to a manager, you can't do anything for 6 innings. You've got to put a reliever in. He's got to pitch to 3 batters. There's just too many rules like this that are changing the way a baseball's been played for 140 years or whatever it is. And I'm tired of the commissioner's office and baseball and leadership putting these types of rules into play that ties managers' hands. They don't just let them go out and play the game the way we used to play it, and let pitchers pitch. By the way, we didn't have to have mandates in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and going back even further than that for pitchers to pitch more than 6 innings. They wanted to. Number one, they didn't look to get out of the games as soon as they got in trouble, like they do today, except for a handful of guys. You shouldn't have to mandate this thing. This is a problem with Major League Baseball. Batting averages go down. We take away, we'll take away the shift. We put all these false, what's the word I want to use?
Narratives.
Arbitrary rules in, right, to try to improve. Don't make the players better. Don't teach the players how to hit where the people aren't standing. Let's just make the people stand where they're going to hit the ball. Come on.
Keith, you're talking that you want old school, but then again, you're talking about old school in the past was a starting pitcher would pitch as long as possible.
Right.
It would be demeaning to him in a sense if it was an ace pitcher where they'd have to bring in a reliever. If a Juan Marichal, a Bob Gibson completed 8 innings and they were still strong, the manager would never have thought of bringing in a reliever in the 9th inning. Now they take a guy out after 6 innings, their pitch counts. Who sets the number of pitches at 100? What scientific evidence is there that 100 pitches is your Mendoza line?
It's terrible. Again, you're talking exactly what I'm talking about, right? Pitchers probably can't pitch more than 6 innings now because they are not programmed from the time that they start getting. It's in college. It's everywhere. We have all these pitch limits, and kids don't build up their arms to pitch. I saw a great meme. I wish I could find a way to show it. You know, Nolan Ryan's arm was so bad after pitching 5,000 innings. He was only able to throw 137 pitches when he threw his 7th no-hitter, you know, at 44 years old or whatever. I mean, it's
before I let you go, Keith, I know you got to get out of here. The average pitch innings in the farm system is only 4.1 innings. So that's not going to build anybody's arm. So anyway.
No, one more quick thing to my point that I do have to jump, but we got an argument, not an argument, but a debate on the NMLB show last week about how Tanner Houck for the Red Sox is gassed after pitching 134 innings this year. Are you kidding me? Catfish Hunter would have pitched that by freaking July or June.
Yes, he would. And I'm glad you brought up Catfish Hunter. We don't talk about him enough.
I like to get names in there where I can.
I like the name too. Keith, have a great show. Check them out right after us on the Roku channel. Keith, thanks for coming in, buddy.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
I knew I get Keith all excited before he left, so I had to squeeze that in. And Jack, your thoughts on that? I mean, he's saying it shouldn't be mandated, but maybe it should be because they're not doing it. I mean, if the managers are not going to do this and let their starting pitchers pitch, we've seen them pull out pitchers and the relief pitcher come in and lose the game. We've seen it in the playoffs. We've seen it a bunch of times. If the managers or GMs is probably the more correct reason why they're not pitching more than 6 innings. If they're not doing it, how do you get them to do it if you don't mandate it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand the players' union, what their position is going to be on this, because it would affect careers. In one end, it would make starting pitchers more valuable, where they should be able to get a little more money. But what does it do to the rest of your bullpen, your middle relievers?
It's a great point.
I mean, is the team going to be able to afford to carry a couple of less pitchers for position players? I just don't know. But I'm going to tell you, you get used to anything, Mac. You get used to any changes. And I don't want to hear in this day and age about, well, the tradition of baseball, this and that, because a lot of the tradition has been pure nonsense. For example, the term the cleanup hitter, that is pure nonsense. A guy is hitting 4th, and the logic is, well, if the first 3 guys get on base, the next guy could clean the bases and hit a grand slam. What are the chances of the bases being loaded when the number 4 guy gets up? Since I was a little kid, Mac, logic told me you want your best hitter going first because there's a chance he could get up 1 extra time during the game. But the thought is, bat him 3rd or 4th so he could knock in some runs. So many times we see them start the game and they get up and no one's on base, and just the mindset of baseball, I mean, it's got to change. I mean, it's starting to, We look at on-base percentage now more than we do batting average, even though batting averages dominate the box scores. So we now know that on-base percentage is so much more important,
Right.
than anything else.
Right. I listen, Jack. I agree. I agree with you. Once you make a rule, you got to make another rule, right? It's like everything else in life, right? If you leave things alone, and I think people have jobs, Jack, and this is how petty I think it is. People have jobs in these different organizations, the NFL, the MLB, and if they're not doing anything, I think they feel like they're not doing anything to earn their pay, so they got to make up some rules or some new things and try to either be to earn their pay. I really do.
Now, listen, I'm the wrong person for you to talk to about this, because if it was up to me, I would change the format of baseball altogether. I would allow offensive and defensive teams. I would have my 8 best position players, obviously not counting the pitcher, on the field at all times. I'd have some guys who would only play defense, who would never get up if the rules allowed it. And then I would have my 8 best hitters in there. Now, a guy could do them both, play the field and hit. That's up to the manager, what he wants to do. But I'd have defensive specialists. You're doing that, Mac. You're doing that in football when you think of it. You have offensive and defensive specialists. You can't do it in basketball because of the nature of the game. You can't do it in hockey because of the nature of the game. But you can do it in football and you can do it in baseball, but yet baseball doesn't do it.
Jack, that's not the weirdest idea I ever heard. I mean, it's in fact, it's kind of a good idea. I don't know. So maybe you gotta get in touch with the commissioner over there, and I bet he'd be intrigued by it if nothing else. So let's get to some of the scores. Of Boston loses the Orioles 7-1. As I said, Oakland beats the New York Mets. The New York Mets had a lead too there,
5-0, and they let it go. Those games hurt you so bad by the end of the year, Matt.
They do.
They don't seem it doesn't seem like a devastating loss now. But when you're making a run for the playoffs and you're a game or 2 out late in the season, they come back to haunt you.
I agree. I mean, you got to beat the teams that you should beat, like in any sport, right? And those are the teams that the Mets should beat.
Any team, when you're 5-0, you got to close.
I agree. I agree. So let's see. The Yankees will start a 3-game series. I think they started with Detroit, if I'm not mistaken. Where they, let's see what the Yankees do there.
Detroit's been a disappointment to me under A.J. Hinch, their manager. I thought this year they would make a serious run to the playoffs. I thought they'd get in the playoffs.
Yes.
Okay.
NBA.
And they never made that serious run. They've been under 500. They haven't been awful. Maybe you could say there's a tiny bit of improvement, but certainly not enough.
NBA schedule was released, Jack. You have the Boston hosting the New York Knicks on the first day, and Minnesota at the Lakers October 23rd. 10-game slate after that. You have the Bucks against the 76ers. So there's going to be the Boston. It's the first game. Everybody's going to be excited. If the Knicks beat Boston, really, so what? If Boston beats the Knicks, really, so what? But it's like the first game of regular season, right? If the Knicks win, the Knicks fans are going to be like, we're going to the world. We're going to go to the NBA championship. If Boston wins, see, the Knicks aren't as good as we are. I mean, that's what it's going to be. I mean, I know as soon as that first game comes
you have to love the NBA. There's so many storylines that are taking place. We don't know how the East is going to pan out. The Celtics are the favorites. I mean, they should be the top seed in the East this year.
Yes.
The Knicks are improved, with the moves that they've made. And the Sixers getting Paul George, that kind of gives them some new life, kind of some new hope, that they can make a run, in the East.
Yeah, listen, 76ers built their bench up. They got Drummond there. They got a few other good players, too, that are going to be good coming off the bench. So I expect the 76ers to be up there with the Knicks challenging the Celtics next year. I don't know about
then there teams like the Cavaliers,
right.
who chances are going to be good. The Orlando Magic, who improved a great deal last year.
Indiana will be there.
Indiana conceivably can make a run. I mean, they improved.
I think it's going to be competitive.
Year.
I think it's going to be competitive in the East, more competitive than it's been in the last few years, Jack. I really do. I really think that it's going to. Yeah. So I want to get to you. We talked tomorrow. We're going to be talking about the 1976 boxing team that was probably the best team ever as far as the Olympic boxing went. And we'll go through the whole thing tomorrow on the Sports Memory Show. So, Jack, this year, of course, they did have boxing, men's boxing. It wasn't promoted like it's been in the past. United States boxing teams have kind of fell off. In fact, this year they only got a bronze. Let's see, Uzbekistan. They won 5 gold medals. China wins 3, 2 silvers. Cuba only gets a gold and a bronze. Right. The thing, I read an article about the WBC, the head of WBC, Marcio Suleiman, president. Right. He wrote an article, and he was kind of pointing out the two things. First, he said boxing viewership was still strong across the world. The views were pretty good. The ratings were good. But he had a couple of concerns. The first concern he had was allowing pros who already they boxing the Olympics before, they jumped at pros, then they jumped back. They allowed the boxing commission, they allowed pros to fight against amateurs. And he says, well, if you're going to allow the mid-range pros, what's to stop the championship pros from coming and competing in the Olympics too? And of course, going against an amateur would be definitely unfair. Somebody could get hurt, blah, blah, blah. What are your thoughts about pros boxing in the Olympics, Jack?
What are their thoughts, Mac? Imagine it was the same as the NBA, and they approached Terrence Crawford. We want you to box, but they're not going to pay him any money extra. Now, the NBA players have such phenomenal endorsement deals that they can switch over, play for USA Basketball. If anything, it's going to increase their marketability, and they can work out certain deals with sponsors. But boxers aren't as popular. Terrence Crawford isn't as popular as, let's say, a Jason Tatum, for example. Right. And imagine you approach the top American boxers, like him, Boots Ennis, fight in the Olympics. But you're not getting paid any extra money. You have to show up at the Olympic training camp. And the Olympics, for American boxing at least, has always been the equivalent of college football to the NFL. It's, a step underneath. But in these other nations, it's the ultimate thing for them, to win medals. It's the ultimate thing. It's not quite that way in America, okay? And I don't like it. I think it's a farce that someone could turn pro, have X amount of fights, then go back to the amateurs. I mean, It doesn't make sense. But what Mauricio Suleiman was saying about the viewership, I don't know what it was outside of the United States, but here in the United States, it doesn't have the interest it used to have. NBC didn't put on Olympic boxing, to my knowledge. I didn't see it. It would be on the USA Network channel, was also carrying the games. So it was harder to find. They didn't promote it as much. It wasn't the same as past Olympics where they had certain stars. We talked earlier about Caitlin Clark. Well, past Olympics had certain names that people went out of their way to see, to view. Oscar De La Hoya. When's De La Hoya fighting? I want to see it. When's Sugar Ray Leonard fighting? I want to see it.
Right.
The United States had no such names. Such names. And there's a certain unfairness. Jalilov, one of the fighters, he's had 14 pro fights, but he jumps back and fights in the Olympics.
Another concern, Jack, was no headgear, and what he said was that even some of the winners that won couldn't go on because their face was cut up, and of course the helmets kind of protect you from that, the headgear. So if you're gonna fight a pro who's used to getting cut, not fighting with the headgear, and you're an amateur that fights with a headgear. I mean, even if you're a winner, you might have to go home, and it happened a couple times, Jack. Do you think they should be mandatory that the Olympics have headgear?
Yeah, but there's a certain hypocrisy there. If you ask Mauricio Suleiman whether the professionals in WBC title fights should wear headgear, he'd say no.
Right.
They don't wear headgear in the pros. So why are you so concerned that a fight of 3 rounds, a lesser fight, they have headgear, but for 12-round fight that they don't?
All right, that's a great point. Great point. So that's the article I read, and I wanted you to get your thoughts on it.
But the Olympic boxing, the viewership it's not what it used to be.
Not even
and
close.
Winning 1 bronze medal here in the United States,
It's embarrassing.
it was like, who cares? The Olympics would make stars in the past. We know who fought in the Olympics, and we couldn't wait for them to turn pro, like the 1984 team. Evander Holyfield, Pernell Whitaker, Melfred Taylor, Mark Freeland, et cetera. We were anxious for them to turn pro. It's not that way anymore. But I think part of it's this too, Mac. In the past, you didn't have cable TV. You had ABC television. You had Howard Cosell. Hate him as much as you want, but he was a voice that people tuned into.
I agree.
So there was a lot of drama involved. The Olympics was so big, but not counting the boxing events, I think the Olympics did make a nice comeback this year. I think it was interesting, and I think people really enjoyed it a lot. I know I did.
I think it did too, Jack. I think there were more viewers than in a long time anyway.
I watched more than I thought I would.
So, Jack, this day in history, Pete Rose returns to the Reds as a player manager in 1984. I haven't heard of player manager since Babe Ruth and stuff like that. So it was interesting that he did that. With the Phillies, had a great career early with the Reds, had a great career, but the managing, maybe he should have stayed away from.
Yeah, no, I don't think he should. I'm not going to go with a player manager, but Pete Rose, he had other things on his mind. Eduardo Perez, Tony Perez's son, who's a broadcaster, remembers when he was a player, and Pete Rose asked him to check on the Kentucky Derby.
Right.
Like that. He had a gambling problem. He was an addicted gambler, and it was awful. He did. We spoke of Nolan Ryan in the show. He gets his 324th and final victory in 1997 with the Texas Rangers. Durability for a fastball, 100-mile-an-hour thrower. Durability, buddy. And let me tell you a little stat that's amazing about Nolan Ryan. For all his no-hitters and for all the great things he accomplished, he was on 1 championship team in his whole career. 1 World Series winner, the 1969 Miracle Mets. I mean, it's hard to place Nolan Ryan as a Met, but that was his 1 championship team, and he pitched, more than 20 years after that.
Yes, it was. Yeah, a long time ago, Jack. A long time ago. One other thing I want to throw in here before we leave: Mark McGwire becomes the first MLB player to hit 30 or more home runs in his first 4 seasons. I forget how great Mark McGwire was when he first started out. I mean, compact guy, quick bat, really was something else when he started, Jack.
Yeah, it's interesting. Jose Canseco, who talked about steroid users, that he thinks Mark McGwire may have hit the home runs anyway. I mean, we'll never know. The thing I wonder about is this: when Mark McGwire took the supplements, was it legal to take them? I'm still not clear on it. If it was illegal, that's one thing. I don't want to hear morally wrong.
Right.
Was it illegal? I've never really gotten full clarification, understood that.
Me either, Jeff. Supposedly, they weren't the steroids weren't illegal when they first were being used. So that changed. Anyway, folks, thanks for tuning in. I'm glad. Thanks for all the views, likes, and remember, Keith Angle is up after us on his show. So stay tuned to Roku. Great shows all day. Thanks for joining us. Behave out there.